Okay, good morning, class. And I hope you're doing great, and you've been keeping safe wherever you are. And it's quite an honor once again to meet on probably maybe on a different platform. And I think I did send out a message on the probably maybe was it Easter, and I said somehow we'll meet again, and none shall be missing amongst us. Okay. And so far so good. It's great to know that we haven't received any negative report of any of our students, and it's something to be appreciative of. And so, once again, uh, I want to be so grateful for the work we've had, and I'm hoping that we are all building up on our individual lives, okay? And just imagine that, for example, if this closure is to go for a long time, and we don't have means to teach by the e-learning platforms, what do you think would happen? Okay, what will your life be if schooling ends today? So what am I trying to drive at? Don't peg your life to school. Okay, I actually understand that most of you are under the pressure of so much material coming in left, right, and in the midst of that, you have home or domestic affairs to cater for, and a lot of things. But in the midst of that, still find a way of living, not existing. Still find a way of living. Try to rediscover yourself and try to make meaning out of your living. That is where you be happy with it. Okay, you definitely cannot say what will happen in the next month or in the next 2 months, but be alive. That's good. Be alive. Okay, be alive. And if nobody should claim ignorance of the happenings that are occurring now, it brings us a sense of a kind of checkmating on ourselves and seeing where we are arriving at. If peradventure, if nobody hopes for a negative thing, peradventure, if you die today, I'm not sure your creator would be asking, why didn't you complete your medical school? Okay, it's far bigger than that. Okay, so please, as much as it is, make the most out of your living. Now, don't just exist, live. Leave footprints on the sandals of time. Leave footprints in your home. Leave footprints in the lives of your siblings. Leave footprints in your neighborhood. Leave footprints in your county. Leave footprints. Let it be known that this person existed and lived and had an impact and had an influence. Okay, success is measured by influence. Positive influence, I can tell you that. Success is measured by influence. Okay, so during this moment, irrespective of the pressure you may be going through, still live. That is all, still live. And today is May 21st, and a year and 12 days officially as a teaching staff in this wonderful institution. And my 1 year has taught me a little bit of so many things, and I've learned, and it is worth to be appreciative of the privilege given to impact people. I believe there are just to transmit physiology. There are people who understand physiology more than I do and can even teach it much more better than I can do. But the ability to have to talk to students within a short time and allow them and give them, and then for them giving you their time to influence them is an. So it's been an honorable 1 year teaching students, learning from students, understanding different cultures, understanding how people interpret gestures and how people relate with people. Okay, I've learned a lot. Um, a few things which I may see as a mistake on my part in the terms of being open and other things. But then one of the things which I've learned this year, which I told you 2 years today, is an aspect which I want you to inculcate: honor. Honor. If you want to enjoy favor in life, practice honor. Honor your parents. Honor people around you. Honor is a seed. Okay, it's a flavor that makes you accepted everywhere you go. You just imagine you are just honored. People look at you differently. It's an aroma. It's the effervescence of your spirit that causes you to be accepted in places. Favor. If you want to gain favor, learn on how to honor. Okay, learn on how to honor. Because walking in dishonor excludes you from operating in the realms of. Sometimes one of the things I've learned in medical school is that medical students overinflate the importance of medical profession. And in the process of that, they abrogate to themselves a kind of thing. Okay, so they abrogate to themselves something. Okay, and so they become arrogant, they become disrespectful, they have disregard. For the people that around with me, I've always told you there's a courtesy of communication. Okay, there's a courtesy of communication. Learn to honor people. Learn to honor people. Honor is a culture you must sustain. Okay, honor is a culture you must sustain. You can never receive from somebody you equate to. There must be a potential difference. There must be a gradient where somebody from that's higher than you gives to you. Okay, so you must create that, and honor creates that. Okay, because the aspect of honor touches your pride, because not everybody wants to honor. Honor calls for humility. Okay, and that what touches your pride. Okay, so when you are desperate for growth, anything is endurable. If you want to grow, you must endure the aspect of honoring people. It is very important. It is very important. Consider your ways. Consider your ways, all that your eyes may open, and you see that the attitude you have is what will keep you having those experiences you've been experiencing. Okay, the attitude you have is what will keep making you experience the experiences. Okay, you keep repeating those experiences. Repeated experiences reveal what you are consistent at. Okay, when you keep on having the same experiences, check, what am I consistent at? Okay, what am I consistent at doing? Your experiences is what will reveal to you what you've been doing. Okay, we are introducing the dishonor. You must be inculcate, train yourself to honor people. Okay, that's a flavor from your heart. It starts from your heart and how you predispose to people. Okay, please. It is very, very important. It is very, very important. I just wanted to bring that so that we may begin to talk more subsequently. Okay, we'll be talking more subsequently, and so our class is about beginning, and so we have people linked. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do that, because sooner or later the information will be available only to those who have subscribed. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, and please, for the purpose of our class, we can, through the comments, you can ask your questions through the comment section, and please be polite with your question. If you want something taken over, be polite in requesting for that to be taken over. And then if somebody asks a question that I've mentioned and I've answered it more than once, a student can quickly answer that at the comment section. Okay, please, let's respect one another. Okay, I always try as much as I can to give respect to my students. Okay, I see tomorrow better than I see today. Okay, so please learn that it's not a medical trait. It's not a medical trait at all. Okay. Okay, so that is great. Okay, that is very great. So I want to hope that you've been able to go through the rigors of cardiovascular physiology, and make sure you try as much as you can to go through the content that Dr. Hamambulu did share with you, and immerse yourself with the content. It's not just for the purpose of examination; it's for the purpose of your career. It's for the purpose of your career. So give yourself to it, and so far so good. We'll pick up from there. Okay. So today, and for the couple of lectures we'll be having ahead, entering into year 10-3, we'll be looking at gastrointestinal physiology. Okay. We'll be looking at gastrointestinal physiology. Okay. And one of the characteristics of living things is growth, and for us to grow, we need to be fed. We need to have access to nutrients that in building us to grow. Okay, so the gastrointestinal tract avails us the opportunity where micronutrients and micromolecules, building blocks, are absorbed into the system. But before they are being absorbed, they are broken down from complex macromolecules into what? Simpler molecules. We have the pharynx, we have the esophagus, we have the intestine, the large intestines, which ends what? In the anal rectum. Okay, and sandwiched in between this, we have glands that produce secretions. Okay, these secretions are either intricate or part and parcel of the intestinal wall, or they are produced from glands, and these glands empty into two ducts into the gastrointestinal tract. We have the liver and we have the pancreas. Okay, so that is in a nutshell what we can quickly speak of. Okay, uh, briefly, and we would start straight away. And we have mentioned that the alimentary canal, the gastrointestinal tract, and its various digestive glands, including what? The salivary gland, the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, isn't it? It's a muscular tube of about 5 meters, okay, extending right from the mouth to the anus. Okay, and one of the things I would want to advise you, please make sure you're jotting down in your material. I'll try as much as I can to be slow. Don't miss this first lecture. You miss out on this first lecture, you will be running after us. Okay, don't miss out on this first lecture. Okay, so the digestive or the system consists of the gastrointestinal tract that commences from the mouth and ends where? And ends in the anus. Okay, or the anus. So, and it has it also has associated glands like the salivary gland, the pancreas, the gallbladder, the liver. Okay, it's a muscular tube of about 5 meters. Okay, it's a muscular tube of about 5 meters. From up going down, we have the duodenum, we have the jejunum, and we have what? We have the ileum. Okay, we have the small intestines consists of what? The duodenum, the jejunum, and what? The ileum. And the various parts of the gastrointestinal tract are separated by special muscles called the sphincters. Okay, they are separated by special muscles called what? The sphincters. Okay, which control the passage of food contents from one part to the other. So, what is the function of sphincters? The sphincters, they control. They are special muscles that control the passage of food content from one part of the gastrointestinal tract to the other. For example, we have the gastroesophageal sphincter or the cardiac sphincter that separates that controls the aperture from the esophagus from the lower esophagus to what? To the stomach. Okay, we have the gastroesophageal sphincter. The gastroesophageal sphincter, or the cardiac sphincter, controls the aperture of the lower esophagus and opening into what? Into the stomach. Then we have the pyloric sphincter. We have the pyloric sphincter that separates the duodenum from what? The stomach. Okay, we have the pyloric sphincter that separates the duodenum from the stomach. Okay, then the ileum is separated from the colon. The ileum is separated from the colon by what? The ileocecal sphincter or the ileocolic sphincter. So we have the ileocecal sphincter or the ileocolic sphincter. Okay, as I did mention earlier on, in living in living humans, the mean length of the gastrointestinal tract is about 5 meters, right? We have the buccal cavity and the pharynx is about 15 centimeters. The esophagus is about 25 centimeters, 30 centimeters. The small intestines, okay, the small intestine is about 285 centimeters, 285 centimeters, and the large intestine is about 110 centimeters, while the anal canal is 15 centimeters. Okay, that is in living human beings. But after death, the GIT relaxes and elongates. Okay, after death, the GIT relaxes what? And elongates. And so, for example, the small intestines, which was about 285 centimeters, becomes 700 centimeters, Okay, so that gives you a picture, and that could be applicable and could help you understand many things. Okay. Okay, so we started by just giving a brief introduction on the gastrointestinal tract, right? And and so what are the functions of the digestive system? What are the functions? Vividly in your mind, you're already thinking of the functions, right? Of course, it has to do with it has to do with food. We can forget quickly, okay? But then let's look at how it performs this. So, okay, what are the functions of the digestive system? So the first function is motility. Motility, okay, motility. Now, motility means more or less like movement, isn't it? It means like movement, propulsion, okay? And this is brought about by the contraction and relaxation of the muscles of the GIT wall, okay? And what does it serve? It serves both for mixing and propulsion of the food content, of the content of the GIT. So it serves both for mixing and for propulsion, and it's brought about by contraction and relaxation of the muscles of the gastrointestinal wall, isn't it? And so it serves to mix and to propel, and it is the content is propelled what? Analward. Okay, the content is propelled analward. The content is propelled towards the anus. Call it analward. Okay, analward. Okay, like towards. Okay, analward. Okay. So the first function is motility. So what is the second function of the gastrointestinal system or the digestive system? We've talked about motility. Then the second function is what? Secretion of digestive juices. Okay, this secretion of what? Digestive juices. Okay, juice. So this occurs by an active process, and such juices contain mainly various digestive enzymes and other constituents. Okay, these digestive juices contains what? Mainly enzymes and other what? And other constituents, and we'll look at that. Then the third function is digestion of food. Process whereby complex macromolecules are broken down into simpler particles. Okay, proteins, fats, and complex carbohydrates are broken down to what? To their simpler forms, or to their building blocks. Okay, then when we have motility, we have secretion of vitamins, minerals, and fluids. Okay, and these contents are absorbed into the blood and into the lymph vessels. Okay, absorb what? Into the blood and into the lymph vessel. And the last function is excretion of undigested and of non-absorbed substances of the feces. Okay, so we have excretion of non-digested and non-absorbed substances. Okay, so we started with the introduction. We've gone to the general functions of the digestive system. So we've mentioned 5: motility, secretion, digestion, absorption, and excretion. Okay, those are the general functions. But as we'll come to see, you see that it serves much more beyond this. Okay, we could see where in the large intestine where there's production of vitamin K, okay, even cholesterol, and even vitamin B12 and things like that. So you would see that it also helps in the synthesis of other substances in the body. Okay, now let's look at the structure of the wall of the GIT. This is a very important aspect which I want you to know. You have to know what I'm saying now. Structure of the wall of the GIT. Okay, structure of the GIT wall. I think any textbook would one section. So if you're looking at the diagram, look at the cross section of the GIT wall. I think last year I asked this question, just in a diagrammatic format only. Describe the structure of the GIT wall. Okay, so let's look at it. Let's start from inside going outside. So it has about 4 layers. So the first layer is the mucosa. Okay, the first layer is what we call what? The mucosa, or the mucosa, or what? The mucous membrane. Okay, what is the purpose of this mucous membrane? It is concerned with secretion of both of digestive juices and certain hormones. Okay, I'm sure you've done in histology about membranes, right? So you have the mucous membrane. So this is concerned with secretion of both digestive juices and what? And certain hormones. Okay, as well as it's also important. It's also its function is what is also in the absorption of what? Of various nutrients. Absorption of what? Various nutrients. But what do we say in? So this is, if you take a cross section of the GIT, especially from the lower third of the esophagus to the colon or to the rectum, you will see that it has 4 layers. Okay, and then it's made of, the digestive tract is made of both skeletal muscles and what? And smooth muscles. So we have skeletal muscles in the pharynx and in the upper one third of the esophagus, and in the anal rectum. That's why you have skeletal muscles in the upper one third of the esophagus and in the pharynx, the mouth, and then in the lower one, and in the anal rectum, and then in between them you have what? You have the smooth muscle. In between them you have the smooth muscle. Please take note of this difference. And so in the mouth, the esophagus, and the anus, where there's a considerable abrasion, okay, where there's considerable abrasion, the epithelial layer of this mucous membrane is stratified squamous epithelium. Okay, okay, you see, remember how epithelia is classified, right? It's classified on the basis of what? The shape of the cells, and based on what? The layers of the cells. Okay, so we have the squamous, the cuboidal, and the columnar, isn't it? And based on the layers, we have simple and what? Stratified. So in areas where you have a variable degree of abrasion, tension, mechanical stretching, isn't it? Mechanical stress, isn't it? So you have this mucus, the epithelial layer of the mucous membrane is of the stratified squamous variety. Okay, but then when you have in regions that are devoted to absorption and secretion, you have a simple layer of columnar epithelium. Okay, in regions that are devoted to what? To absorption and secretion. What do you have? You have simple columnar epithelium. Okay, you have simple columnar epithelium. Okay, so we said the function of the mucosa is concerned both in secretion, is concerned with secretion both of the digestive juices and what? And hormones, and certain hormones. Okay, and we said it is also relevant, important in what? Absorption of nutrients. Okay, absorption of what? Of nutrients. Now, this absorption, the mucous membrane, this absorption is enhanced by the formation of what we call villi. Okay, what is a villus? A villus is a finger-like projection of the mucosa in contact with the lumen of the GIT. So this mucosa develops what we call finger-like projections, which we call villi. The singular is villus. And what is the function of this villi? The function of the increased surface area of absorption. Okay, surface area of what? Absorption. So we have the formation of villi, which are finger-like projections of the mucosa. And then there's also formation of microvilli within the villi, which form brush border on the luminal surface of the epithelial cells. Can you still remember apical modifications of epithelial cells? You have brush borders, you have villi, you have cilia, okay? You could even have flagella. So these are modifications. These are modifications of what? Of the epithelial cells, okay? Apical modifications where you have the development of brush border. We have brush border cells. I think we saw brush border cells in the respiratory tract, isn't it? We also have ciliated columnar epithelial cells. Okay, so we have so we saw ciliated columnar epithelial cells. So you could have brush border. Brush border are mostly found where? In the intestines and in the renal tubules. Okay, so you have absorption is enhanced by the formation of villi. Okay, which are finger-like projections of the mucosa. Okay, so when these substances are absorbed, what are they? So in this mucosa we have small blood vessels and lymphatic vessels. Small, we have blood capillaries and what? Lymphatic vessels. We have small capillaries and what? Lymphatic vessels. It contains blood capillaries and what? Lymphatic vessels. And the mucosa also contains a thin layer of smooth muscle cells, what we call the muscularis mucosae. Call what? The muscularis. The muscularis mucosae. Okay. Let me try to see if it's the muscularis mucosae. Okay, so that's the muscularis mucosae. So there is a layer of smooth muscle cells called the muscularis mucosae, okay? And it controls the folding and the shape of the mucosa, okay? It controls the folding and the shape of the mucosa, okay? And because of this, also sometimes they also help in the contraction, minor, yeah, and squeezing out secretions, okay? So it controls what the folding and the shape of the mucosa. So the first layer is what? The first layer is what? The mucosa. That's the first layer of the GIT, which is in contact with what? The lumen. It's what? The mucosa. Then the second one is what? The submucosa is beneath the mucosa. Remember when we were talking about epithelia, you said immediately beneath the epithelium is what? The subepithelial connective tissue, isn't it? Beneath the epithelium is what? Is connective tissue. So this is a dense connective tissue layer. Okay, can we still remember the classification of connective tissue? We have connective tissue proper and have what? The specialized connective tissue, isn't it? Under the connective tissue proper, you have the loose, we have what? The dense and the what? And what? There are three. Well, we have the loose areolar connective tissue, you have the dense regular and what? The dense irregular, right? Yeah. And so we have the submucosa is what? It's a dense connective tissue layer that contains large blood vessels and lymph vessels. Okay, the submucosa contains what? Large blood vessels and large lymph vessels. Okay, and it also contains a prominent nerve plexus. It contains a prominent nerve plexus called what? The submucosa plexus. Contains a what? A prominent nerve plexus, a collection of nerves. What we call it a submucosa plexus, or the Meissner's plexus. Okay, we call it the submucosa plexus, or what? The Meissner's plexus. Where is this plexus found? This plexus is found in the submucosa. We'll come to that later. Okay, and then after the mucosa, submucosa, we have what? We have the muscularis mucosa, or the muscle coat. So we have what? The musculosa. The musculosa. We call this the muscle coat. Okay, what the musculosa. Okay, the musculosa. The musculosa. Okay, it is it's a layer which could be contains two layers. We have what we call the enteric plexus or the aorta plexus. Okay, you have what? The enteric. Okay. Enteric plexus, what or what? Or the aorta plexus. Okay, sorry, the AUER. It's okay, the aorta plexus. Okay, so then the fourth layer is the serosa. Okay, the fourth layer is what? The serosa. So we have, this is a membrane that covers the GIT wall. Okay, except at the esophagus and the anal canal and the distal rectum. Sorry, except at the esophagus and distal rectum. Okay, and it's continuous with the mesentery. Okay, it's continuous with what? With the mesentery, which contains large blood vessels and nerves. So we have four layers. We have the mucosa, we have the submucosa, we have the musculosa, and we have what? The serosa. Okay, we have the four layers. Okay, please make sure you understand these layers and then their descriptions. Okay, it's quite important. Okay, now let's look at the nerve supply of the GIT. Okay, let's look at the nerve supply of the gastrointestinal tract. And so before we look at the nerve supply of the gastrointestinal tract, please pay keen attention. I will take a digression a little bit and remind you and introduce you to autonomic physiology. Okay, to autonomic physiology. Please follow keenly. So we want to talk about the nerve supply to the GIT. Okay, that's what we want to talk about. But before that, we know that the nervous system is made up of the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Okay, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system combine to give us what? The nervous system. And the central nervous system is made of what? The brain and the spinal cord. Okay, the brain and the spinal cord. And the brain is more of the cerebral cortex, from the cerebral cortex. And beneath the cerebral cortex, we have some important nuclei: the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the basal ganglia, and other nuclei. And then we have the brainstem, and then behind it we have what? The cerebellum. Okay, and then the spinal cord is made of what? 31 spinal segments. Okay, the 31 spinal segments. We have the 8 cervical, the 12 thoracic, the 5 segments. We have the 8 cervical, the 12 thoracic, the 5 lumbar, the 5 sacral, and what? And 1 coccygeal. Okay, now this is the central nervous system. But what about the peripheral nervous system? Whatever is in the periphery forms the peripheral nervous system. We could look at the peripheral nervous system as having an efferent system, the motor system. Okay, the efferent system. So the efferent system we have either it is cranial nerves, spinal nerves, or what? Autonomic nerves. Okay, these are cranial nerves. These are nerves that arise from what? From the head, from the cranium. They arise from the central nervous system, most often from what? From the brainstem. So they arise from where? From the cranium. Okay, so we have 12 cranial nerves. Cranial nerve 1 up to what? To cranial nerve 12. I remember one time asking you and giving you these 12 cranial nerves. And we have 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Okay, we have 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Okay, the thoracic, the cervical, the thoracic, the lumbar, and the sacral, and then the 1 coccygeal. Then now, so we have the cranial nerves, they have the spinal nerves, then the next group of nerves are what we call the autonomic nerves. Okay, we'll look at them. Okay, the autonomic nerves include either they are sympathetic or what? Parasympathetic. They are what? They are sympathetic or what? Parasympathetic. Of course, the sympathetic is in the fight system, but the parasympathetic, the rest digest system, so to speak. Okay, and so the sympathetic it arises from where the lateral horn cells of all the thoracic segments and the upper 3 lumbar segments. Yes. So the sympathetic arises from the lateral horn cells of all the thoracic segments and the upper 3 lumbar segments. So it is called the thoracolumbar outflow. So another name for the sympathetic nervous system is called what? The thoracolumbar system. Okay, from a structural perspective. Okay, then the parasympathetic arises from the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th sacral segments and from some cranial nerve nuclei. Okay, the parasympathetic arises from where? It arises from the upper 2nd, 3rd, and 4th sacral segments, S2, S3, and S4, and from some cranial nerve nuclei. Cranial nerve 3, 7, 9, and 10. Cranial nerve 3, 7, 9, and 10. So that's cranial nerve motor, cranial nerve 7 is facial, cranial nerve 9 is glossopharyngeal, and cranial nerve 10 is vagus. So the parasympathetic nervous system is also called the craniosacral system. It's also called what? The craniosacral system or the craniosacral outflow. Okay. So what happens when there is an impulse in a viscera? Now, when there is an impulse initiated in a viscera, this is detected by visceral receptors. And these visceral receptors are excited and impulses are ferried to the central nervous system by what we call efferent nerves. Okay, and then this there's integration of this information and it's gotten back to the effectors by what the efferent nerves. Okay, by the efferent nerves, efferent autonomic nerves. Okay, now these efferent nerve fibers, where do they arise from? They arise from the lateral horn cells. Okay, they arise from the lateral horn cells and some cranial nerve nuclei. They arise from the lateral horn cells. I remember giving you a diagram or the cross section of the spinal cord. Okay, and in the cross section of the spinal cord, you have the dorsal horn, the lateral horn, and the anterior horn. Okay, sensory fibers enter the spinal cord through the dorsal horn, and efferent fibers leave through what? Through the lateral or the what? Or the anterior horn. Okay, the fibers going to the skeletal muscles, they leave through the anterior horn, while those that are autonomic in nature leave their lateral horn. So the autonomic fibers arise from where? From the lateral horn cells of the spinal cord and some cranial nerve nuclei. Okay, so when they arise from the lateral horn cells or when they arise from the cranial nerve nuclei, what happens? They relay in ganglia. These are called autonomic ganglia. Okay, they relay in ganglia. What is a ganglion? A ganglion is a collection of nerve cell bodies outside the central nervous system. A ganglion is a collection of nerve cell bodies outside the central nervous system. So we have the autonomic nerve efferent fibers arising from the central nervous system and they relay in the ganglion. So the nerve that arose from the lateral horn cell is called the preganglionic nerve fiber. Okay, and the one that arises from the ganglion is called the postganglionic nerve fiber. Okay, so the presence of the autonomic ganglia is a characteristic feature, and they are mostly what? They are mostly myelinated, while the postganglionic fibers belong to the type C fibers and what? And they are mostly unmyelinated. Okay, they belong to what? To the type C fibers and they are what? Mostly unmyelinated. So what happens? The sympathetic fibers and the parasympathetic fibers, their course is different. Their movement from the lateral horn cell is different. Now, the sympathetic fibers, they course, and then when they relay, they form what we call the white rami communicant. Where's my pen? What we call the white rami. So the preganglionic neurons leave they leave the ventral horn. They arise from the lateral horn, but they pass through the ventral root, okay, of the thoracic and the upper lumbar nerves and enter the white rami communicants, okay. And so these neurons reach the lateral and the collateral autonomic ganglia. We'll talk about that shortly. The lateral and the collateral autonomic ganglia. The lateral and the autonomic ganglia. So we have the lateral and the collateral autonomic ganglia. So these sympathetic fibers, these preganglionic fibers, they arise and they course through the anterior root and they enter what we call the white rami communicants. We'll talk about this in details when whoever will teach you autonomic physiology. I know where I'm getting to this, okay? And so through this rami, these fibers can now pass through or relay through the collateral ganglia, okay? Through the collateral ganglia. We have three types of autonomic ganglia. We have the lateral or the paravertebral. We have the lateral or the paravertebral ganglia. Please take note of this. Now, the white rami communicants, they are not actually far away from where the preganglionic fibers arise, because they arise from the lateral horn cells of all the thoracic and the sacral and the upper three lumbar. So they are just close by the spinal cord from their point of origin. Okay, it's unfortunate that we cannot be able to give pictures, but Hopefully, when we come to autonomic, we'll be giving in details. I'm just giving this chunk of information because that is what I want to discuss now in cardiovascular. Okay, so we have the lateral. We have three types of ganglia. We have the lateral, or the vertebral, or what, or the paravertebral ganglia. Okay, all of them are one: the lateral, or the vertebral, or what, or the paravertebral ganglia. Okay, so they are present on both sides. They are present. These are present in the form of two chains at both sides of what? At both sides of the spinal cord. Okay, at both sides of the vertebral column. Okay, and each chain contains about 23 ganglia. We have three cervical, we have 12 thoracic, 4 lumbar, and 4 sacral ganglia. Okay, we have, for the lateral or the paravertebral ganglia or the vertebral, they are present in the form of what? Two chains at both sides of the vertebral column. Okay, they are present as two chains, in the form of two chains at both sides of the vertebral column, and each containing what? About 23 ganglia. 3 cervical, 12 thoracic, 4 lumbar, 4 sacral, and 1 coccygeal ganglia. So we have 3 cervical ganglia, 12 thoracic ganglia, 4 lumbar ganglia, and 4 sacral ganglia. The 3 cervical ganglia are called superior, middle, and inferior cervical ganglia. Okay, please take note of this. Okay, this is where I was driving the discussion towards. So we have 3 ganglia. Okay, we have 3 ganglia, 3 types of ganglia. For the lateral, or the paravertebral, or the vertebral, they occur in the form of chains on both sides of the vertebral column, and each chain contains about 123 ganglia, 3 cervical, that's superior, inferior, and middle. Okay, we have superior, middle, and inferior. And we have 12 thoracic, 4 lumbar, 4 sacral, and 1 coccygeal. Now, sometimes the inferior cervical ganglion fuses with the upper thoracic ganglion to give us what we call the stellate ganglion. Stellate ganglion. Okay. This as a result of what? Fusion of the inferior cervical and upper thoracic ganglion. Okay, to give us what? The stellate ganglion. So how many 3 cervical, 12 thoracic, coccygeal. So the 3 cervical are what? Superior, middle. We have the collateral, or what we call the prevertebral ganglion. We have the collateral or the prevertebral ganglion. Okay, these are present mainly in the abdomen, in close association of what? In close association with the abdominal aorta and its big branches. So you have the prevertebral, ganglion, specifically where? In the abdomen. Okay, in the abdomen, and they are located close to where? Close to the aorta, the abdominal aorta, and its big branches. And they carry the names of their corresponding arteries. So you have the celiac ganglion, you have the superior and inferior mesenteric ganglia. Okay, so you have they pick up the names of their corresponding arteries. So you have the celiac ganglion, you have the superior and inferior mesenteric ganglia. Okay, and then the last class of ganglion is what we call the terminal ganglia. The terminal or the peripheral. This is mostly For parasympathetic, most parasympathetic ganglia are peripheral or terminal. Okay, so these ganglia are closer to the effector organs, or sometimes they are even located on the walls of on the viscera. They are located on the walls of the viscera. So if it is in the wall of the viscera, they are called intramural ganglia. Okay, they are called intramural ganglia. Okay, they are called intramural ganglia. So after going through the rigor of bringing you up to speed to the various, to do a brief introduction of the autonomic nervous system and the ganglia, let's look at innervation or nerve supply of the GIT. Okay, we are looking at the GIT right from up from the esophagus or from the mouth going right to the anal canal. Okay, so let's look at parasympathetic fibers. Okay, parasympathetic fibers. Okay, parasympathetic fibers. These are cholinergic preganglionic fibers that that reach the GIT via vagi and pelvic nerves. Okay, the vagi from the cranial and the pelvic nerves from the sacra. Remember what we said, the parasympathetic is also called what? The craniosacral outflow. It's called what? The craniosacral outflow. So the parasympathetic supply reaches the GIT via what? Um, Via vagal nerves, okay? Via vagal nerves and pelvic nerves, okay? And they almost entirely terminate at the neurons of the intrinsic nerve plexuses. Okay, remember we talked about the nerve plexuses, the myenteric plexus and the Meissner's plexus. Okay, the myenteric plexus and the Meissner's plexus, or the myenteric and the Meissner's plexus, the submucosal or the IOBEC. Okay, so we have the vagal nerves. What do they supply? Please take note. The vagal nerves supply the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestines, and the upper part of the large intestines. Okay, the vagal nerves supply the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestines, and the upper part of what? The large intestines. Okay, while the pelvic nerves supply the lower part of the large intestines and the rectum and anal canal. Okay, remember we are given a general picture of the innervation of what? The GIT. Okay, so the parasympathetic stimulation, what does it do? Generally, parasympathetic stimulation increases secretory, and motor activities. Okay, so parasympathetic stimulation generally increases what? The secretory and motor activities. When we hear of secretory, you think of the mucosa. When you hear of motor, you think of what? The musculosa. Okay, remember we mentioned the functions of the mucosa. So the parasympathetic stimulation brings about increases in what? And what? Motor activities of the GIT. It also causes what? The relaxation of sphincters. It causes what? Relaxation of sphincters. Okay, it causes relaxation of what? Of sphincters. It causes relaxation of sphincters. Okay, now we look at what? The sympathetic fibers. Okay, the sympathetic fibers. Sympathetic fibers. Okay. The sympathetic fibers are noradrenergic postganglionic fibers that arise from the prevertebral autonomic ganglia. So you can quickly remember the prevertebral autonomic ganglia. They will say we have three. We have the prevertebral, we had the lateral or the paravertebral, then we have the prevertebral, and then we have the terminal. So the sympathetic, these noradrenergic postganglionic fibers arise from what? From the prevertebral or the collateral autonomic ganglia in the abdomen. And I said in the abdomen, they pick up the name of the corresponding arteries. They are close by the abdominal aorta and its large branches, isn't it? Okay, so and we said they pick up the name. For example, we mentioned the celiac ganglion, we mentioned the superior and the inferior mesenteric ganglia, isn't it? So these noradrenergic postganglionic fibers arise from the prevertebral autonomic ganglia in the abdomen, each the celiac and the mesenteric ganglia, and they reach the GIT. They reach the GIT via the splanchnic nerves. For the parasympathetic, they reach the GIT via what? Via the vagal nerves and the pelvic nerves. But here they reach via what? The splanchnic nerves. Okay? And many of these fibers terminate in the neurons of the intrinsic nerve plexuses. When we talk about the intrinsic nerve plexuses, we're talking about what? The enteric and the Meissner's plexuses. Okay? The enteric and the Meissner's plexuses. Those are intrinsic nerve plexuses. Okay? Why some of them? So we have these splanchnic nerves. They would synapse. They will synapse with on the intrinsic nerve plexuses, or some of them will directly innervate smooth muscles. Okay? Some of them will directly supply smooth muscles. Some of them will bypass the plexuses and supply directly what? The smooth muscles. Okay? And others will innervate blood vessels. So we said parasympathetic stimulation, what does it do? It brings about what? It brings about increased secretory and motility activities, and then what? Relaxation of the sphincters. So sympathetic stimulation will bring about what? Decrease motor and secretory activities, and it will cause what? Contraction of what? Of the sphincters as well as the muscularis muscle. It causes contraction of the sphincters as well as what? Contraction of the muscularis mucosae. What did we say was the muscularis mucosae? Is a thin layer of smooth muscles in the mucosa, isn't it? Which is responsible for the folding and shape of the mucosa. Okay. Now, we mentioned that the autonomic nervous system is subdivided into parasympathetic and sympathetic, right? There's always a third division, which is considered to be a third division of the autonomic nervous system, which is called the enteric nervous system. The enteric. So each time you hear of enteric, you hear of enteron, think of the GIT. Enteron, okay, enteron. So the enteric nervous system consists of the myenteric and the submucosal nerve plexuses. The myenteric or the iobed, and then the submucosal or the Meissner's nerve plexuses. Okay? The myenteric or the airbags, and then the submucosa or the Meissner's nerve plexuses. Okay, so each of these plexuses is formed of a large number of neurons that are connected by interneurons. Okay, and these interneurons are about to 100 million neurons in both plexuses. Okay, and then these plexuses are both also interconnected by intermediary neurons, making it a complex and sometimes considered as a third division of the autonomic nervous system. Okay, so it extends from the lower third division of the, it extends from the lower third of the esophagus to the large intestines. Why from the lower third? Because that's where you have the smooth muscles. The upper one third is made of skeletal muscles. The middle third is mixed. Third of the esophagus to what? To the large intestines. Okay, and all the extrinsic autonomic nerves synapse with these neurons, with the neurons of what? Of the enteric nervous system. All the extrinsic, when we're talking about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, they what? They relay with these neurons. Okay, but except some sympathetic fibers that bypass them, as we have mentioned earlier, and directly supply what? The smooth muscles. Okay, Rhoda is asking, so what is the enteric nervous system? This is the nervous system of the enteron. Okay, this is the nervous system of the enteron. Okay, it's the nervous system within the GIT. It is considered sometimes as the third division of the autonomic nervous system because it's autonomous. It controls the viscera, which is the GIT in this case. And then we say it's made up of two major plexuses, the myenteric plexus and the submucosal plexus. Okay, and these plexus, each of these plexus is a community, is made of several neurons connected by interneurons. Okay, And the plexuses are also held together by interconnected by intermediary neurons. Okay, and the enteric plexus, we say the enteric plexus lies in between the outer longitudinal smooth muscle layer and the inner circular smooth muscle layer. Okay, that's where you have the enteric plexus lies between what? The outer longitudinal layer and the circular muscle layer. While the Meissner's plexus lies between what? It lies between the inner circular layer and the muscularis mucosae. Please take note. Okay, so the Meissner's plexus lies in between what? The inner circular smooth muscle layer and the muscularis mucosae. Okay, and we say that the extrinsic autonomic nerves, that means the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, they relay on the enteric nervous system. They synapse on it. So they don't control directly, they control the GIT by relaying on the enteric nervous system. So the vagal nerve, the pelvic nerves, the splanchnic nerves don't go directly to the tissues. They relay on the what? On the enteric plexus or what? Or the Meissner's plexus. But we've said there's an exception. We have some sympathetic fibers that directly supply what? The smooth muscles. Okay? So is that clear, Rhoda? I'm sure I should have been able to address your question. So we look at, and we've mentioned before that what does the parasympathetic do? That means the enteric nervous system is important in affecting motility, affecting secretory functions, isn't it? So the parasympathetic nerve supply is generally stimulatory to the ENS. Okay, the ENS is the enteric nervous system. So the parasympathetic nervous system is stimulatory to the ENS, which brings about what? Increase in secretory and motility activity. While the sympathetic is generally inhibitory, decreasing motility and secretory activities. I'll definitely in some way ask you somehow to write short notes on the enteric nervous system. Okay, so the enteric nervous system contains. So the enteric nervous system contains three types of neurons. We have the motor neurons, we have the secretory neurons, and we have the sensory neurons. What do the neurons do? The motor neurons directly innervate what? The smooth muscles. Okay, the motor neurons innervate what? The smooth muscle. Why? The secretory neurons, what do? They regulate both endocrine and exocrine secretions of the mucosa cells. Don't forget, what was the function of the mucosa? We said the mucosa is involved in what? Secretion, of course, of certain hormones and digestive juices, and also in what? In absorption. Okay, so the secretory neurons regulate both what? Both the endocrine and exocrine secretions of the mucosa. Okay, while the sensory neurons, they respond to stretch, they respond to changes in tonicity of the fluid of the GIT, and they also respond to changes in chemicals. Please take note of what we are discussing today. It lays the foundation of the things we'll be discussing ahead. And I may not take time on some of them as I'm taking time today. These are fundamentals. So the sensory neurons, what do? These sensory neurons, they are involved with to change in tonicity, as well as to what? As well as to the presence of certain chemicals. Mainly controls motor activity of the GIT. The enteric plexus controls motor activity of the GIT. And where do we have the enteric plexus? It's in between the outer longitudinal and the inner circular muscle. Okay, Zami, sorry, is asking if I could kindly repeat on the motor neuron. Say the motor neuron, what? Okay, just think of the motor has to do with muscle, isn't it? So the motor neurons, contraction and relaxation. So the secretory neurons, they regulate both what? They regulate both the endocrine and exocrine secretory functions of the mucosa. Okay, so they regulate both the endocrine and the exocrine secretory functions. That's the second type. Then the third is the sensory. They respond to what? They respond to stretch, to changes in the tonicity, as well as what? To certain chemicals. Okay? So I was saying that the myenteric plexus mainly controls the motor activity of the GIT, particularly what? Peristalsis. Peristalsis, okay? It controls what? The motor activity of the GIT. While the submucosal plexus controls its endocrine and exocrine secretions. Okay, so the myenteric, motor activity, the submucosal, endocrine and what? And exocrine secretions. Now, for this reason, even if you cut nerve supply to the GIT will still function. Okay, so a considerable activity still exists in the GIT after cutting its extrinsic nerve supply. Okay, so we also have several substances are secreted by neurons of the enteric nervous system. Substances like acetylcholine, serotonin, gamma aminobutyric acid, GABA. We have large polypeptides like vasoactive intestinal polypeptide. We have cholecystokinin. We have calcitonin gene-related polypeptide. We have gastrin-related polypeptide. So these are, so the first one I said acetylcholine, GABA, we have CCK, you have vasoactive intestinal polypeptide, you have CGRP, calcitonin gene-related polypeptide. So there are many of them. We see we have serotonin, we have acetylcholine, we have gastrin. Okay. Okay. So after looking at that, let's look at briefly the blood supply of the GIT. Okay, the blood supply of the GIT. Okay. So I'm trying as much as I can so that we flow sequentially the blood supply of the GIT. And so arterial blood reaches the GIT through several arches that arise from the abdominal aorta. I don't know if you've done the aorta. If you've done the aorta, you know that the thoracic aorta, you have the thoracic aorta, you have the abdominal aorta, right? And of course, which arises and acts at the angle of Lewis and gives off the branches that are going to the head and neck, and then continues down as the abdominal L something. Okay, I'm sure you do that better in anatomy. So we have the supply by what? Large branches from the abdominal aorta. So these ones will pick their names, just like we have the celiac, the mesenteric, and the likes. Okay, and then you have their drain. The jet is drained mainly via the portal vein into the liver, of course. I'm showing via the portal vein into the liver. And then from the liver, it drains into the inferior vena cava via the hepatic veins. Okay, so it drains into the inferior vena cava via the hepatic. Okay, and that is quite important. Any questions so far before we continue? What we haven't even gone anywhere yet. Okay, if there is no question so far, we of gastrointestinal functions. Okay, how are functions of the GIT regulated? This is a colossal picture. This is a general foundation. Okay. So what are the regulations? The regulations of the gastrointestinal functions. So you have the nervous regulation and the hormonal regulation. Please do explain as to how can nerve supply still continue to the GIT when you cut the supply to the GIT? When the enteric is one which only works as parasympathetic, what will work for sympathetic supply? I don't know if that is what I did mention, but I didn't say that the enteric only works for parasympathetic. Okay, I said the parasympathetic and the sympathetic both relay on the enteric nervous system, but we have some fibers of the sympathetic that supplies the smooth muscle directly. Okay, so whatever the extrinsic, they relay on the enteric nervous system. Okay, and it's from the enteric nervous system. What are we talking about? We're talking about the enteric and the what? And the iobag. Okay. Okay. So that is, I think you should be able to pick that up. Okay. Okay, please let's look at regulation. So we look at nervous regulation. Nervous regulation. So we have regulating the gastrointestinal activity. So we have nervous regulation, and we have what? And we have hormonal regulation. Okay. So for nervous regulation, we have what we call the local axon or local enteric reflexes. So for nervous regulation occurs by reflexes. Nervous regulation occurs by what? Occurs via reflexes, occurs through reflexes. Okay, so you have three kinds of reflexes. You have the local axon reflex. So when we talk about a reflex, remember there must be a stimulus, there must be a receptor that picks up the stimulus, there must be an afferent, there must be an integrating center, and there must be an efferent. So if I ask you to describe for me any gastrointestinal reflex, I need to see the components of a reflex. Okay, a stimulus, a receptor. Okay, so we have local axon reflexes are short reflexes that occur entirely within the enteric nervous system. Reflexes that occur entirely what? Within the enteric nervous system. Okay, that means all components of the reflexes are located in the GIT wall. All components of the reflexes are located where? And then we have reflexes that are responsible for peristalsis. We'll look at that in detail. Remember, we are giving an introduction. Okay, an introduction. Okay. So the second, so these reflexes, they start from the gut receptors. That means you have the afferents, and then the afferents relay where they go to the prevertebral sympathetic ganglia. Remember, we had the three types of ganglia. We have the lateral, the collateral, and the terminal. We have the paravertebral, the prevertebral, and the terminal. So we have Nachizo neuron. There must be an integrating center. There must be an efferent neuron, and then there must be what? There must be an effect. Okay, an effect. Okay, there must. My head was shaking, but then in any case, that is that. So we've talked about the local axon reflex, where these are short reflexes that entirely occur within the enteric nervous system, and all components of such a reflex are located in the GIT. Okay, and we said examples of them are what? The reflex that leads to the secretion of what? Gastrin. The reflex that leads to the secretion of what? Gastrin. You understand? And then you mentioned the second reflex for the nervous regulation is ganglionic reflexes. Okay, ganglionic reflexes. Ganglionic reflexes. So these reflexes start from the gut receptors to the prevertebral ganglion or the prevertebral sympathetic ganglion, then back to the GIT. Okay, these reflexes start from the gut receptors to the prevertebral and back to the GIT. Okay, and these ganglia act as nerve centers in this case. So remember, I told you that there is a nerve center, or there's what we call what? An integrating center. An integrating center. So we have the reflex here, the reflex that they start from the gut receptors, and then they go to the prevertebral sympathetic ganglia, and then from there back to the GIT. So that the ganglia acts as what? As an integrating center of the reflex is what? The enterogastric reflex. The enterogastric reflex. Enterogastric reflex. the gastrocolic, reflex, okay? The gastrocolic reflex, okay? And then we'll have also, so we'll look at these reflexes in detail. So the last example, the last type of reflex within nervous regulation is what we call the central nervous reflexes. These are long reflexes that start from the gut receptor to the spinal cord or brainstem, then back to the GIT. Please don't forget the reflex, okay? The components of the reflex, and thus you use them to be able to differentiate the kind, okay? So you have central nervous reflexes, okay? These are long reflexes that start from gut receptors to the spinal cord or brainstem, and then back to the GIT. An example, vago vega. We have the vago-vagal reflexes that results in the secretion of various digestive juices, okay? And also the esophageal peristalsis, okay? So I have the vago-vagal reflexes, okay? So we're talking about nervous regulation, and the nervous regulation involves reflexes, and we have the ganglion reflexes, and have what? The central nervous reflex. Okay, let's look at hormonal regulation. So let's look at hormonal regulation. So the gastrointestinal functions are also regulated by a group of polypeptide hormones that are secreted by the enteric endocrine cells. Okay, so you have activities of the gastrointestinal system, and where are these found? They are found mostly found where? In the mucosa. Okay, in the mucosa. Okay, so these hormones that are produced from the enteric endocrine cells are absorbed into the circulation via the portal vein into the liver and to the general circulation, and then they come back to security activity. Okay. I don't know, my network keeps on fluctuating. I'm using my data. I don't know if I could switch now to the school, but then kindly asking if you could please repeat the ganglionic reflex. Okay, Felix is asking if I could kindly repeat the ganglionic reflex. And so the ganglionic reflex, I mentioned that they start from the gut receptors to the prevertebral sympathetic. Sympathetic ganglia acts as the integrating center, and so pass from there back to the GIT. And I said, so an example was the enterogastric reflex. We are just giving it generally, okay? So we have different kinds of hormones that can influence gastrointestinal activity. So they are mostly grouped into two classes. We have the gastrin family and the secretin family, present in the gastrin via the portal veins. Okay, they enter the systemic circulation via the portal veins, and through that they come back to the GIT and effect their changes. So we have generally two classes, families. They are grouped like the gastrin family and the secretin family. The gastrin family includes secretin, gastric, so the gastrin family, sorry, include gastrin and cholecystokinin. Okay, the gastrin family includes what? Gastrin and cholecystokinin, while the secretin family includes secretin, gastric inhibitory polypeptide, vasoactive intestinal polypeptide, and glucagon and glycentine. Okay, so we have they are grouped into that. So we also have other gastrointestinal hormones like somatostatin, substance P, neurotensin, gastrin-releasing polypeptide, enkephalins, serotonin, So we have several of them. Okay, you try to. If I were you, I would look at this material that I'm taking down today. Okay, you may want to use Ganon. I think that may be an appropriate book. I think so. You may want to use Ganon to be able to beef up this material. Don't let it stay. Don't capitalize on some video available someday tomorrow. No, it's energy draining sometimes watching videos. Okay. So please, please, I may have to stop this and use the school internet so that you will not have so that's okay.